Why catching these Pokemon was almost impossible by MandJTV. I do want to take a second. I do actually really like that we're starting with the Destiny Deoxys introduction here. Love it.
Generation 3 of Pokemon had 5 mainline games that took place across 2 regions. Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald in Hoenn, and Fire Red and Leaf Green in Kanto. But at the time, there was one other mainline region, Johto.
Ori?
This was the first time in Pokemon history that a region and its Pokemon existed but could not be traveled to. This mattered because of Gen 3's introduction of the National Pokédex, a dex covering every Pokemon that existed at the time, even those that could not be caught in that specific game. In later generations, you could make quite a lot of progress toward completing a national dex by simply transferring Pokemon in from a previous generation.
So there's actually reasons behind this, so I'm going to be fairly brief. We actually watched, we actually reacted to, this is long ago, Kip Reacts, Gapier, I don't know how it's pronounced, and I do apologize. His video actually breaks down the impossible trade between Gen 2 and 3, how he was able to do it with some proprietary hardware, and how he was able to actually like bridge the gap. But yes, he's correct. Going from Gen 2 to Gen 3, anything in Red, Blue, Yellow, and Gold, Silver, Crystal could not actually go up to Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, Fire, Leaf Green. Like, there is a hard divide, kind of like there will soon be at some point in the future when Pokemon Bank for the 3DS one actually just stops working, right? There will be another hard divide there.
Example, Generation 4 included Kanto, Johto, and Sinnoh, but not Hoenn. So you could transfer Hoenn Pokemon in from Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, even though you didn't technically have to. But Gen 3 never connected to Gen 2.
Nope.
So your Johto Pokemon in Gold, Silver, and Crystal were stuck there.
This is why I will never have a Quagsire with Belly Drum, because Belly Drum Wooper was a mystery gift way back in Gen 2 and has never been re-released, and Quagsire subsequently still cannot learn Belly Drum. So there are certain things like that that you just cannot get anymore.
To get Johto Pokemon within Gen 3, you had to obtain them within Gen 3.
Yep.
And getting all of them was almost impossible.
Yes.
I went through every Johto Pokemon and gave them ranks of 1 through 6 based on how difficult they are to obtain. And we're gonna cover all of them.
I like that he used Roman numerals.
Progressing from the easiest to the ones that were so difficult that I would call it cruelly ridiculous. The first and easiest difficulty rank is rank 1, Regional Dex. I was gonna call this pre-game, but I realized 1, it's really more during game, and 2, I didn't want to make it sound like these Pokemon were taking shots at their apartment before they headed out to the bars.
No, I mean, but if you are doing an actual Live Dex challenge, like you are pre-gaming it a little bit, let's be honest.
Rank 1 Pokemon are obtainable before the Pokemon League in a handheld game.
Sure.
Which directly means they're in the Hoenn Regional Dex, since the Kanto Regional Dex does not have any Pokemon outside of the original 151. Including later gen evolutions, which I think is stupid, and it's pissed me off every time they've done this.
It's one of those, like, you'll watch a Golbat, it'll attempt to evolve into a Crobat if you don't have the National Dex unlocked, but it physically cannot actually evolve. It will stop itself from evolving. You know, like when you hold B or press B to scare it and stops evolving, it will do that every single time.
Meryl can be found very early in Hoenn, and it even got a new baby form with Azurill. Zubat, Golbat, Oddish, and Gloom are found everywhere, so of course their evolutions Crobat and Blossom are present. Slugma and Skarmory are found in the areas around or inside Mount Chimney. Amusing side note, I know of many people who actually thought that Slugma, Magcargo, and Skarmory were Hoenn Pokemon, not Johto Pokemon, partially because major trainers used them, but more so because you really just couldn't find them in Gen 2.
It's a common misconception, right? They are those Pokemon that people go, I'm sorry, you're from what generation?
No major trainers used them, and then in the wild, Skarmory was only in Silver and Crystal and very rare, while Slugma was only ever found in Kanto. I will never understand why they did that. So many Johto Pokemon in the Johto games were only post-game. But back to Johto Pokemon in the Hoenn Regional Dex. Corsola, Chinchou, and Lantern are found in Hoenn's vast ocean, as is Horsey, which you can evolve all the way to Kingdra. But they do make it annoyingly tough to do since Dragon Scales are only found on Wild Horsey and Bagon. Igglybuff can be bred from Jigglypuff, which is found on Route 115. And then the rest of the Johto Pokemon in the Hoenn regional dex are found directly or indirectly in the Safari Zone.
Yeah.
Natu, Xatu, Wobbuffet, which is of course here because of why not, Girafarig, Heracross, Phanpy, and Donphan are all wild there, as is Pikachu, which is how you get Pichu. By the way, it took me way too long to realize that the Hoenn Safari Zone is you going on a safari to Kanto and Johto. There is not a single
Hold up. No, he has a point.
Gen 3 Hoenn Pokemon that spawns there, and most Safari Zone Pokemon do not spawn anywhere else. It's a wildlife preserve for exotic Pokemon that are just not exotic in other regions. I think I might have missed this because while the Kanto Safari Zone has exclusive Pokemon in it, like Scyther or Chansey, it's also packed with Pokemon that you can find elsewhere. But then the Hoenn Safari Zone is like, look, Pikachu!
I would say, I would counterpoint that the Gen 1 runs into some isms, like how like Persian knows like Thunderbolt and stuff, or like Tauros knows like Blizzard, because of how few Pokemon there were at the time, as well as how few moves there were. Like there's some isms that arise. So Gen 1 being populated by Pokemon you can find outside the Safari Zone isn't the most wild thing to me, considering it is the first entry into the series. Now, if it was like Gen 4 or Gen 3 up to Gen 6, like Friend Safari status, okay, like sure, like what's special about this, right? And I kind of look at it as like you're opening like a box set of like a trading card game or something like that. Your common picks are going to be your Nidoran arenas, right? Your rare picks are going to be your Chanseys and stuff, right? So I can kind of forgive Gen 1 specifically for it being the pioneer of the Safari Zone, which was later dropped from games completely. But I think I don't know. It's interesting. It's an interesting duality to think on.
You can't find this anywhere else. And I'm just like, yeah, but it's Pikachu. I can find it in a lot of other places, just not in Hoenn.
Radiant Force.
So those are the rank 1 Johto Pokemon, but next is rank 2. Post-game evolutions. These are Pokemon where you can get some members of their evolutionary line before the Pokemon League, but you can't get all of them until after. And again, I hate that they did this. Being too faithful to the original games does not a good remake make. But I still think 2 is a proper rank here because you can at least make some amount of progress beforehand.
Right.
First up, the Babies. Cleffa, Tyrogue, Smoochum, Elekid, and Magby can only be obtained when bred from their evolutions, which are all found in Fire Red and Leaf Green, although Electabuzz is a Fire Red exclusive and Magmar is a Leaf Green exclusive.
Right.
They locked the babies to the post-game by putting the daycare on 4 Island, a post-game only Sevi Island.
Dude, I miss the Sevi Islands. Like, actually, though, I don't think I've ever seen another game attempt the Sevi Islands quite like Fire Red and Leaf Green did. And it makes me so upset. Like, I spent way too many hours as a kid going and just exploring the Sevi Islands, even though there's a limited amount of content, right? The house that was the e-reader feature in Japan, with the tree blocking the door. Remember the mystery of that? The mystery of the unknown ruins in the south, even though it's just really a place to catch unknowns and with a couple other things there. Like, the Sevi Islands really felt like you were exploring just really, really self-contained worlds, and I loved it. I loved everything about the Sevi Islands.
There is another daycare just south of Cerulean City, but it only lets you raise 1 Pokemon at a time, and thus you can't do any breeding there.
No.
Next, there are the Trade with Item evolutions. Kingdra does apply here in Fire Red and Leaf Green, but it's still in rank 1 because it's earlier in Hoenn. Those in rank 2 are Scizor and Steelix needing the Metal Coat, Politoed and Slowking needing the King's Rock, and Porygon 2 needing the upgrade. But I should note that Scyther is a Fire Red exclusive and Slowpoke is a Leaf Green exclusive. The 3 items are found only at these locations, all post-game. And the final rank 2 post-game evolution Pokemon is the weirdest, because it's a friendship evolution, which is somehow restricted to the post-game. Restricting the 2 Pokemon daycare and the evolution items makes logical sense, since you can physically put them out of reach. But
yeah, no, like that, they make sense, especially in trying to be faithful to the original, right? The daycare south of Cerulean was not, like, breeding wasn't a thing in Gen 1, therefore it is being faithful to that, right? The friendship one was always an odd one, And I don't know how you fix that in code, because I mean, well, you could probably add something like, you know how they do like certain invincible objects in certain games, how it's always like one higher than whatever you can physically hit, right? Like it always is one higher. I mean, you could maybe lock friendship to like 254, but then that also like, because it's like 255 as a limit, right? But then you also introduce other things that require friendship and that aren't evolution, like return. So you technically nerf return. And like, I don't know how you reasonably address this. I think this is one of those that was like, it's good enough. It's really not going to make a lot of sense. I mean, there could have been an NPC somewhere that could just, you know, certain Pokemon require a certain amount of trust with their trainer, even at max friendship. You know, their trainer has to be like worth it or something like that. And I feel that could be pretty hand wavy.
Friendship is not something you can restrict. You cannot destroy the human and Pokemon spirit of connection. And yet they did it anyways! The Pokemon's friendship will still grow throughout the game,
right,
but the evolution won't trigger until the first level up after getting the National Pokedex. This feels just so morally wrong to me. What are we teaching the children? That
I might actually be misremembering this then. I thought that it attempted to evolve, but couldn't actually evolve.
Friendship should be conditional!
Yeah.
Well, I guess technically, yes, it should be. Like if your friend stabs you, don't be friends with them anymore.
The amount of people who I actually know who their friends stabbed them 30 years ago and they're best friends today is shocking. I feel like this is a very subjective one, but like general rule applies, yeah. Like, and that's the thing is like normalize conditionality, right? Like if your buddy, and that's the thing, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay if someone's going through a rough patch in their life, right? And that's where compromise, that give and take comes into play, right? Like, what he says is absolutely correct. There's just an asterisk after it for like deeper conversation. But what he says does track. And I think that normalizing conditional like friendships and conditional bonds is honestly a healthy thing. You just have to know, is this conditional or is this unconditional?
But if the conditions are just, hey, do you have the right cell phone? That's a bad lesson. Crobat is one of these friendship evolutions, and I will forever think it's stupid that you can use a Crobat on a playthrough team in Ruby Sapphire Emerald, but not in Fire Red Leaf Green. All 5 being games with Zubat, and all of them in the same generation. I'm enraged. Also, the last rank 2 Pokemon is Blissey. Chansey into Blissey, Chansey's only in Kanto. I should mention that there are a couple more friendship evolutions that I'm not covering yet, because there is some nonsense going on with them that pushed them higher up in the difficulty rankings.
Haha! It is I, Go Red Team, boy, and I have a problem. I have no style. I love the team uniform, but it's limiting my personal expression. What do I do?
Well, there's Holzkern, the sponsor of today's video. Holzkern is a watch and jewelry brand for both men and women that focuses on making products built with natural materials, like wood and stone. The products are made in small quantities to ensure ethical and responsible production, and they all come with a 2-year guarantee. Great place to buy gifts, by the way. I got my girlfriend several pieces of Holzkern jewelry last year.
Oh, and since they're accessories, I could wear Holzkern products with my uniform, and thus improve my style.
Hell yeah, man. Try this. It's the Melodical watch. The strap is genuine brown leather.
Ooh,
nice.
I love it. This has immediately amplified my style.
I knew it would. I know a lot of things. Head to holzkern.com/MNJ to get 15% off the entire site by using code MJTV. Shipping is free worldwide in 5 to 9 business days. And if you're in the US, don't worry about tariffs. They sorted that out behind the scenes.
Fair.
Amazing. I will definitely be doing more shopping there. With all their great stuff, I can absolutely perfect my fashion.
No freeze frame.
I mean my style.
There we go.
Ta-ta!
Next is rank.
I'm going to be honest, that's a 10. I mean, like audio is consistent all throughout. There technically wasn't a transition, which was fine. Considering that a lot of there wasn't a transition that led into the ad read really, but the ad read itself is kind of insular, which is fine because I know some creators will go through if contracts lapse or something happens, they can just kind of go in and edit it out. Think like oh my god, what's his name? Roanoke Gaming, right? Ronak Gaming with his like Resident Evil Nemesis video where he just cut out the Raycon ad, right? So sometimes they'll do it. It was insular. I mean, you could argue it was a pretty long ad read technically, clocking it about what? No, it was only about a minute and a half. But like the length didn't even factor in because it felt great to watch. Like everything was consistent, the quality was there. What sold it over, you know, laughing at the style bits, right? That was great. That was phenomenal. I like that, you know, everything is clear on the screen. It goes with the QR code. It's not on throughout, but I think this is the correct way to do an ad read like this. I was kind of reminded of some of the ad reads we've watched by Shoe on Head. Like, I think this was a really good ad read. I would give it a 10.
3, post-game easy. The Pokemon are relatively easy to obtain, but only once you're in the post-game. Many of them are found in Fire Red and Leaf Green's Sevi Islands. Dunsparce is found in 3 Island Port. You can go to 3 Island during the main story, but the cave leading to its grass patch isn't dug out until you get the National Dex. Icefall Cave on 4 Island has Wooper and Delibird in Fire Red, Sneasel in Leaf Green, and Swinub in both. It also has Meryl, but that's early in Hoenn. Quillfish and Remoraid are version exclusives in Fire Red and Leaf Green respectively, and both are Super Rod fished across several places on 5, 6, and 7 islands. Sentret is also found in grass across those same 3 islands. 5 Island has Hoppip all over it, then its Lost Cave has Murkrow in Fire Red and Mischievous in Leaf Green. The Water Labyrinth is also where you get an egg for Togepi. Moving to 6 Island, Ruin Valley has Yanma, along with Natu and Wobbuffet, who we know are earlier in Hoenn. On the island's north side, you have the Pattern Bush, which has Spinarak in Fire Red, Ladybug in Leaf Green, and then also Heracross, again earlier in Hoenn. 6 Island also has Altering Cave, a strange place with only Zubats, which is weird considering how late game it is. Turns out it was actually coded to make it so Johto Pokemon could spawn there after receiving a certain event. But none of these events ever happened, so it definitely does not count as a place where you can get any Johto Pokemon. 7 Island features Skarmory and Fanpeep, both already in Hoenn, but Seavault Canyon is the only place to get Larvitar at a frustratingly low level.
I mean, so this is one of those things you look at, right? And we've talked about this cave before, right? Like, because I think it was e-reader event specifically. I don't know. There were a couple things that did that, but this was actually supposed to bridge the Gen 1 and 2 into Gen 3 gap. But we did end up getting Coliseum and XD Gale of Darkness, which their whole purpose, from what I understand, is to kind of bring like Gen 1 and 2 up into Gen 2 specifically up into Gen 3. Hence why we got, you know, what Ho-Oh and Coliseum, and then Lugia, Shadow Lugia specifically, which, oh man, I wish we would revisit in XD Gale of Darkness. It all kind of worked out in the end, but it's always interesting to look at the behind the scenes, like reasoning and stuff, what was on the cutting room floor and stuff. Like these Sevi Islands to this day continue to fascinate me, despite us knowing effectively everything there is to know about them.
Can also be found in the water, but only in Leaf Green, and the Tanabe ruins at the south end are where Unknown spawn. And that wraps up the Johto Pokemon in the Sevi Islands. And you may be wondering, wait, what about the others? There's definitely a lot more Johto Pokemon that would fit into post-game easy.
I'm calling Deoxys, Ho-Oh, Lugia, and Mew to be tier 6 because you technically can no longer get the events legitimate. Well, if we're talking specifically in-game, if we're talking about transferring up from Coliseum and XD, but even then, there's a price barrier onto that, right? Like, there's a barrier for entry, not only for that, but also having, you know, Game Boy Advance SP, Pocket Analog, Game Boy Advance, having the requisite cable, right? The GameCube to GBA cable to be able to transfer that up, right? Like, there is technically a price point. The Jirachi bonus disc, once again, technically it's easy if you're someone like me who spent way too much on both. No, because it was the Celebi bonus disc in Japan, right? Oh, I need to go protect that disc. Actually reminds me, I need to go find a jewel case for it. It shipped to me complete in box, but it was still in the like cardboard sleeve, and I'm like, I should fix that. I never actually fixed it. I need to go find it again. But we did have the Jirachi bonus disc, right? So Celebi and Jirachi, technically they're easy, quote unquote. If you have the requisite bonus discs, or you arbitrary code execution, because you can arbitrary code execute in these games fairly easily from what I understand, or they can technically be impossible because technically they are unobtainable unless you do certain things.
That you haven't mentioned. Where are they? And don't worry, I'm gonna tell you, but we have to answer a pretty big question first. Has Pokemon Emerald come out yet? The National Dex technically exists in Ruby and Sapphire, but it only activates by trading with Fire Red, Leaf Green, or Emerald, games that of course did not exist when Ruby and Sapphire first came out. Therefore, there isn't any messaging in Ruby and Sapphire about the National Pokédex. Fire Red and Leaf Green are a different story. Getting the National Pokédex is a big moment in the game and is required to keep exploring. The post-game plot focuses on unlocking the ability to trade with Ruby and Sapphire. They're pushing you to complete this new expanded dex. But at the time these games came out, Emerald did not exist yet.
Right.
This is a problem because I've already covered almost every Johto Pokemon you can get in the first 4 mainline Gen 3 games. So what were you supposed to do to get the others? Let's consult my Fire Red and Leaf Green guidebook.
I saw one of these recently. It was like $60. I debated on it. That's kind of hot.
Specifically the section on completing the National Pokédex.
I used to own the Emerald one once upon a time, but then I traded into Hastings and that was still a thing. I miss it. What did I get? Oh, I got a Heart Gold Soul Silver one recently because I was actually curious how they structured these and to use them in terms of like inspiration for video scripting ideas. Like, I think that game guides, because I also have the Code Veronica one. I've owned the Destiny 2 one when Destiny 2 launched, Resident Evil 5, right? I actually really like collecting games media like that. I like how they're structured, even if the information might be questionable at times, like the Pokemon guidebook that was like, what was it? No, what was it? There was one of them, it was like a well-diversified team, but the well-diversified team wasn't actually super legit or something like that. The guidebooks have been questionable in some aspects, but I think that they're structured really, really interesting.
Oh, what's this? Trading with Pokemon Coliseum's story mode. Players who've explored Ore in Pokemon Coliseum know that you cannot catch wild Pokemon in the region. You can only snag 48 tainted Pokemon from crooks. Many of them are exclusive to the Ore region, so the only way to get them into Kanto is to trade with the Nintendo GameCube game.
So I would like to posit, I know a lot of modern Pokemon players complain about certain things. Don't get me wrong, I complain about certain things as well. Technically, this has always been Pokemon. This has always kind of been a business model that they've had. This helps feed into their other products. Right? So, just food for thought.
That's right. For a period of time in Gen 3, there were dozens of Pokemon exclusive to Pokemon Coliseum. A spin-off game for the Nintendo GameCube where you steal shadow Pokemon from opposing trainers. This meant that a bunch of Johto Pokemon required not only a different game, but an entirely different console. And on that game, you had to snag the shadow Pokemon by stealing them from other trainers, then spend time purifying them by using them in battle, leaving them in the daycare, giving them cologne massages, etc., and beat the main story to allow for trading with the Game Boy Advance. Some of the Johto Pokemon are really early, but others like Shuckle are super late. Additionally, some Pokemon like Mareep or Pineco required you to trade their formerly Shadow evolved forms over to a handheld game and then breed them there.
Yeah, man, I've been in this game for a hot minute, man. Like, oh, this is like, to me, this is one of those things where he's like, he's effectively telling me while he's riding a bike how to ride a bike. And I'm like, yeah, no, I've ridden the bike. I know how to do a lot of this. Yeah, like I literally talked about the whole GBA connector thing earlier. It's so cool to like, I don't know. It's kind of like strange because I like talking about retro Pokemon like this. Like I've watched Jane Animation's videos. We've watched a bunch of videos. Gapier, right? We've watched a really large amount of Pokemon content, and I honestly love talking about stuff like this because like I grew up doing this. I don't often get the chance to. That probably means I should feed into some of my other channels like Professor Kip a lot more. Like, oh, I have so much understanding and experience, and I've spent way too much on legacy product. I have multiple copies of Pokemon Emerald, let's put it that way. Those were not cheap. We want to talk about $80 games. Woo! Man, I wish those were $80. But like, oh, it's so cool to hear him talk about this because like I feel like I talk about it, but people don't quite understand until they see like a video like this and they're like, I'm sorry, wait, what happens? And I'm like, yeah, no, the thing, it's great. I've done it. I have all the equipment to still do these.
Breeding does not exist in Ore. During this period where there was Fire Red and Leaf Green but not Emerald, all the Pokemon exclusive to Coliseum would absolutely be in a higher difficulty rank. But that period did end. And also, it was shorter than I thought it was. In the US, Fire Red and Leaf Green came out in September of 2004, but then Emerald came out in May of 2005, less than a year later. It felt so much longer when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But with the arrival of Emerald, a bunch of Johto Pokemon were made locally available on the Gen 3 handheld games for the very first time. Most of them were added in the Safari Zone expansion, unlocked after becoming champion. These 2 new areas, bringing the zone's total to 6, were chock full of almost exclusively Johto Pokemon. There were some that were already in Fire Red and Leaf Green, but Hoot Hoot, Mareep, Apom, Sunkern, Gligar, Snubbull, Stantler, Pineco, Teddiursa, Houndour, Miltank, and Shuckle were all added, making...
So fun fact, I've actually never played Ruby Sapphire all the way through. I have played Emerald through Elite Four technically twice. So I only have Emerald as the reference point here. Obviously, I played through Fire Red and Leaf Green. I think I actually played through most of Leaf Green on stream, which I'll have to do again. I still need to get VODs out for those. But like, dude, Gen 3 is kind of my sweet spot. Gen 2 Goldenrod City is kind of like, what's your home place? Oh, it very much hits that. Gen 3, though, just let me explore the Sevi Islands for hours on end. Like, that is a comfort place.
Yeah, so Emerald Safari Zone is the only place you can get them on the Gen 3 handheld games. But then there were actually 2 more wild Johto Pokemon added in Emerald, though, just in a different place. The first is Smeargle, which oddly got its own dedicated place, that being Artisan Cave in the Battle Frontier, which spawns Smeargle and no other Pokemon. I guess they just wanted a place for you to, like, have easy access to a bunch of Smeargle in case you wanted to sketch something, but something goes wrong. I don't know, it feels kind of weird to be so dedicated to Smeargle here. There is a second Battle Frontier Johto Pokemon, but I've put it a level above, in rank 4, post-game medium. Post-game obtained, but there's some measure of difficulty in regards to getting it beyond most Pokemon. The first is Sudowoodo. Like in Johto, there is a strange tree in the overworld, this one on the southern edge of the Battle Frontier.
I almost had forgotten about this. It's one of those that, like, it's kind of like that information that never is relevant. And so, therefore, like, I don't recall the information as much. But it's one of those where it's like, oh, what's a good one that's going to get a lot of Pokemon players? I'm trying to think of a really niche thing. It's not niche, but let's talk about, is it Shoal Cave? It's north of Moss Deep. Remember how there were high tide and low tides, and that's all how you got all the components for the Shell Bell? And someone's going to be sitting there watching this and be like, oh my god, I know exactly what he's talking about. I totally forgot about that. And what is a niche interaction that you remember from the games? Comment it down below, because there's a lot of information that has totally escaped my brain. Or like Oak's Parcel glitch from Gen 1, right? A very notorious glitch where, like, if you have more than one Pokemon in your Pokedex, so you say start with Bulbasaur, you evolve it to an Ivysaur, because I am that guy that gets to like level 20 before the first gym, always. Like that's just how I play Pokemon games. Like, because of Oak will not give you the Pokedex, and it's an infamous glitch known as Oak's Parcel glitch, right? Like, oh, it's information that gets said that you've locked away for so long, and it's not that you've really necessarily forgotten it, as much as like the ability to recall it until the moment it's relevant, like, never actually presents itself. I love the fact that he mentioned this. I almost forgot about it.
You simply water it and battle it and hopefully catch it. I moved it up to rank 4 because unlike all the rank 3 Pokemon, there's only one. If you fail to catch it, it will not respawn. So if you forget to save before you KO it, you lose Sudowoodo in all 5 Gen 3 handheld games. Assuming one save file per cartridge, there's one Sudowoodo in all of Gen 3. Well, there's also the Shadow one in Coliseum as a backup. But like...
Bonsly should be Gen 4 technically, right? It was released at XD Gale of Darkness, but you know how they, especially with the movies, how they kind of did like sneak peeks of the next generation? Meowth even mentioned in the English dub of Manaphy and the Temple of the Sea, like, yeah, hey, what about, like, I think they said something about Diamond and Pearl or something about space and time, Jesse and James, and Meowth said something about we have to finish the current arc first or something like that, breaking the fourth wall as Pokemon movies are known to do. Like, I think Bonsly would be one of those weird examples of Pokemon that wouldn't be able to transfer over. I don't remember. Actually, I have my second monitor open. Bonsly generation. Because it should be Gen 4. Yeah, it was introduced... Google, that is technically not correct. Bonsly is a rock-type Pokemon introduced in Generation 4. That is technically incorrect because it was introduced in XD Gale of Darkness. It was on the ship. I don't think you could catch it. I think it was just kind of like an Easter egg. There are things like the Notch-eared Pichu events that were never able to move up. Like they for all intents and purposes, were stuck in Heart Gold, Soul Silver. So the Notch-eared Pichu is technically part of Pokemon Lost Media.
Just the handhelds. One Sudowoodo. Next is Hitmontop. There is a Shadow one in Coliseum, but if only using the mainline games, you have to first breed a Tyrogue from Hitmonchan or Hitmonlee, then level up that Tyrogue to level 20, and hope that you got its attack and defense stats exactly equal.
Yes,
Seriously.
yeah,
Hitmonlee
yeah.
and Hitmonchan are easy. Attack higher, Hitmonlee. Defense higher, Hitmonchan. But getting them exactly equal can be really tricky and require multiple tries.
Yep.
You'll definitely have to shell out for some vitamins or do some actual EV training if either stat is affected by the Tyrogue's nature.
Remember, we also don't really have any system. Like, I know some, like, third-party proprietary, not legit systems, right? You're able to kind of look at what IVs a Pokemon has. Or, like, even if you went to, like, Pokemon Showdown, how you can, like, modify IVs on Pokemon Showdown, right? But that's not an official game. Like, you're going in, like, okay, well, this Tyrogue has 2 lower attack. I mean, so clearly it just hatched. So, okay, that's not an IV thing. But as it levels up, is the EV investment going to overcome the IV differential? Yeah, Tyrogue is a very early example of things that people, the meme, right, evolving Pokemon back then, trade this, do this, right? Nowadays, you have to go find the coldest mountain at 5:59 p.m. on a Tuesday, and you have to make sure that your Pokemon has had 3+. The meme, right? The quote unquote excessive satirical meme, right? This is an early example of evolution requirements that required a little bit more.
It's not completely insane, but it's definitely a more involved process than most evolutions. And finally, for rank 4 are Umbreon and Espeon. These are the last 2 friendship evolutions that I mentioned earlier, and they're up in this higher difficulty rank because, very stupidly, you cannot evolve an Eevee into Umbreon and Espeon in the same game that you get Eevee.
Fire and Leaf Green do not have a day-night cycle. It's why when you run into, like, ROM hacks, or when you run into, like, you know, like, quality of life adjusted, like Fire and Leaf Green, how they have a day-night cycle. Honestly, looking at Fire and Leaf Green with a day-night cycle, like Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, I think they had a day-night cycle, if I remember correctly. I'd have to go back and check. Or even, like, Gen 4, right? Like how, you know, just seeing the same map but with different lights, even if it's only like daytime, dusk, night, dawn, right? Like only if you have like 4 times, even if it's just 1, 2, right? Yeah, because Gen 2 had shifts. Yeah, Gold, Silver, Crystal. Like you saw maps in the day and saw maps at night. Yeah, so Fire Leaf Green was a step backwards. Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald should have had the day-night cycle in it, if I remember correctly. At the very least, it had a clock, and that was what was important. If you can't tell, I've been in the series for way too long, and I very much love watching videos like this. They don't usually do well in the algorithm, though. This is amazing. Go and check out MandJTV, especially if you have not. Like, this is good. This is a trip down memory lane.
Espeon and Umbreon are both friendship evolutions, but with a distinct difference from others like Crobat and Blissey. The time of day matters. If the final level up occurs during the day, you get Espeon, and at night, you get Umbreon. In Gen 2, Gold, Silver, and Crystal had a day and night cycle, so this functioned logically and straightforwardly. But then Gen 3 got weird and dumb. Fire Red and Leaf Green, where Eevee is obtained, not only don't have a day and night cycle, but they don't have a time system at all. But then Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald do. You just can't see it most of the time.
Yeah.
The clock you set at the beginning of the game triggers time-based events.
Okay, so I'm not misremembering. Yeah, like we brought up the clock, because I don't remember the map actually shifting, because everything seemed like it was daytime. But we do have the clock. I'm not misremembering.
Like berry growing, daily lotto tickets, and Shoal Cave.
Yeah.
This system is also what allows for the evolution of Eevee into Espeon and Umbreon.
This is also, if I understand it correctly, part of why the berry fix glitch, which is one of the earliest, in my opinion, instances of video game download update, that kind of thing, right? Because you had to, if you connected it to, I think, XD Gale of Darkness or I think it was Coliseum specifically, or you went to like a kiosk at like GameStop, EBMs, I think, there was a way to distribute the berry glitch fix into Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. So that had a lot to do with the time, your battery running out, because your battery running out also like makes events just not work. It's not. I don't think it's as inherently tied to the save file as Gold, Silver, Crystal was in the Game Boy Color, right? Game Boy Color games, but it definitely has an impact on events and cycles in the game. Like your roving NPCs, like they're one of the Pokemon centers, like the mixer guys, right? Your berries, any sort of events that require time, like evolutions day night, like those all come to a screeching halt until that battery is fixed.
So if you want both Espeon and Umbreon in Gen 3, you have to get the one Eevee in the entire game at Celadon City, become champion, get the National Pokedex and the Rainbow Pass, breed at least one more Eevee at the 4-Island Daycare, unlock the ability to trade with the Hoenn Games, which does not happen once you have the National Dex. There's that side quest with Team Rocket that you have to go through, trade both Eevees to Hoenn, then raise their friendship there, and then level them up at the right time of day. This was the dumbest way to do what should have been straightforward evolutions. Like, why wasn't time just simply a thing in Fire Red and Leaf Green?
I actually have asked this for years. I actually don't know the answer to it. I'm sure there is one. I'm sure one exists. I don't know what it is.
Like, the technology was there.
It was.
It's in older games in the same generation. Why didn't you just let me set a clock in Fire Red and Leaf Green? I know how, I promise. Also, they should have just given you an Eevee in Emerald's post-game.
Yeah.
Come on!
I mean, we did get some stuff at Emerald's post-game, but I'm sure we're going to get to that.
It's debatably easier to just get Espeon and Umbreon from the GameCube games.
Yeah.
Obviously, using a whole other game and system adds difficulty.
Yep.
But Espeon and Umbreon are the starter Pokemon in Coliseum.
Yep.
Which is very cool.
Yeah.
And while you do still have to complete the main story to trade with the handhelds, because they're not shadow Pokemon, you don't have to worry about purifying them in order to trade them. You can also get them from XD, Coliseum's sequel, since you start the game with an Eevee, but you pick one of the 5 evolutions to evolve it into, and thus could get only one or the other.
Yeah.
Fun fact, XD is the only game with traditional battle mechanics where you can evolve an Eevee into an Umbreon or Espeon.
Because it has very special stones that have never made a return since, and those stones were very specifically so you could evolve into an Umbreon or Espeon in XD Gale of Darkness.
Without raising their friendship. You instead have to have a Sun Shard or a Moon Shard in your bag. Friendship evolutions do exist in XD, but the time of day does not.
Yeah.
So this was an interesting workaround. I would prefer, personally, that they just did what they did for Leafeon and Glaceon, just make them Sun and Moonstone evolutions.
Bring it back. Bring back the Sun and Moon Shard. You won't. They actually won't. It's fairly depressing.
That'd be so much easier.
Be way cool.
And friendship.
Yeah.
Very important, but a lot of work. And with the Johto evolutions finished, we've now reached rank 5.
Oh yeah,
Post-game hard.
Hit me with
These Pokemon are exceptionally difficult to get in the Gen 3 handheld games, to the point of debatable cruelty.
Yeah.
These Pokemon, and those that come after them, are what really make Johto Pokemon in Gen 3 almost totally out of reach. First, the Legend.
Ooh, he's gonna mention the glitch that happens with the legendary beasts in Fire and Leaf Green. Yeah, that upset no small amount of people that glitch existed.
Legendary beasts, Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. They are actually found in Fire Red and Leaf Green, roaming Kanto after the player has completed the Sevi Islands quest and unlocked the ability to trade with Ruby and Sapphire. They're more work to unlock than the other Gen 3 roamers, Latios and Latias, but once you get them going, they're pretty straightforward roaming Pokemon, right?
Yeah, except...
No. No, they're so much worse.
I know.
First off, you only get one of them.
Yeah.
Why? All 3 were in Johto. That's right next door. The beast that appears depends on your starter choice at the very beginning of the game.
Yep.
And it's the one strong against your starter. Raikou for Squirtle, Entei for Bulbasaur, and Suicune for Charmander. Now, this situation can be somewhat likened to trying to get all 3 starters in one save file. Most of the time, you and a friend who picked a different starter will each breed a baby and then send that over to the other person. This can be done as soon as you have access to the daycare, and maybe ditto if your starter is male. You can also get all 3 starters in one file really quickly if you have a second cartridge that you're willing to wipe, since you can pick one, trade, reset, pick another, trade. But you can't.
I actually did this with Gen 7, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, except that the tutorial, and I clocked it, I think it was like 45 minutes to get through the tutorial. Oh, it was agonizing getting all 3 of them. Like, it's there's a reason Gen 7 is criticized. I actually did enjoy Gen 7. I enjoyed Gen 7 VGC, what little I played of it personally. Like, I actually genuinely enjoyed the generation. That tutorial kind of sucked, though.
Can't breed the beasts, they're legendary Pokemon,
right?
And you can't do the sacrificial save file thing because they're extremely late game.
Yeah, they're post game. You can, however, technically transfer them from Coliseum, but see our stipulation on adding a barrier of entry and adding layer of difficulty for having a completely separate game, completely separate console, especially with modern pricing structure.
So to register all 3, you need 2 friends who chose different starters and can trade back with you. If you want to own all 3, you have to beat Fire Red or Leaf Green, including their post-game quest, 3 full times in order to catch all 3. That is, assuming you can catch them at all. Because for 2 of them, you might lose them forever without KOing them. You likely know that if you KO a roaming legendary back in the day, you must immediately reset your game or lose it permanently. But in Gen 3, there was another problem.
The Roar.
If the wild Pokemon uses Roar to end the battle, they're gone. Permanently. Without having fainted. They only have the chance to do this if they're trapped, but if they do so, and you check your Pokedex to see where it went, the Pokedex will show their location as area unknown.
They just zero sum. They do the Dwemer thing from Skyrim. Well, Elder Scrolls specifically, to be more precise about it. Yeah, they just zero sum if they're trapped. So if you block Wobbuffet Shadow Tag them and they roar, grats. I hope you really didn't want that legendary.
Because the game treats Roar in a wild battle the same as KOing the wild Pokemon. This does only apply to Raikou and Entei, since at least Suicune doesn't know Roar. And of course, using your Master Ball avoids this problem entirely.
Gross.
But even so, this is catastrophic. How many people lost their Raikou and Entei because they saved after it fled?
Way too many.
And didn't realize that it was actually gone forever. And one more bit of salt in the wound. All roaming Pokemon that you catch in Ruby, Sapphire, Fire Red, and Leaf Green suck. There was another glitch that made it so their IVs were always garbage. HP behaved normally, ranging from 0 to 31, but attack maxed at 7, and all the others were set to 0, as low as possible. All that work for crap Pokemon!
I actually didn't know that bit. That's actually really funny. Pokemon got me foobarred.
Except in Emerald. They did fix it in Emerald. For the 3 legendary beasts, the GameCube is much easier. Not easy, of course, but like, not stupid awful. That's because you can get all 3 in one save file. Throughout the main story of Coliseum, you'll fight 3 major boss battles against Cypher admins Dakeem, Venus, and Employer Identification Number, each of which have 1 Shadow legendary beast. These battles are often tricky, but snagging the Shadow Beasts, purifying them, using them on your team, then trading them to the handhelds later is a significantly more straightforward process than getting them in the Kanto game.
I actually would really like if they took a page from the anime. You know how, like, what is it? Someone in the Sinnoh League, they just showed up with, like, a Darkrai. Like, and I know, like, that's what randomizers and stuff for, but, like, having like, you know, like really strong trainers, like maybe like you know, like Wandering Steven Stone status, or like you come across, you know, someone who's clearly like, this is supposed to be like Uber boss status, and like they just open up with, I don't know, like Lunala or something, right? Especially if it's a legendary that there's confirmed to be more than one of, like in the games for balancing reasons, right? But like, I don't know, you'd have to cross-reference with the anime how like there's multiple Suicunes and stuff. Yeah, and just like Grats, this person is just playing really bulky. Like they just like throw out a Suicune and a Garchomp or something like that. Like their team is just really bulky with a pivot to offense. I think that would be really cool.
It'll just be more expensive.
Yeah.
The next and final group of Pokemon in rank 5 are, you guessed it, the Johto starters. They actually have 3 methods of obtaining them, and I'll start with the easiest, that being Colosseum.
Yep, you get 1 though. 1 per save.
Yeah, Colosseum's the easiest one. Early in the story, you have to choose one of 3 Cypher peons to battle, each with a Shadow middle stage starter, Bayleaf, Quilava, or Croconaw. You can only get 1 at the time, but later on you can snag the other 2.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Like before, once you beat the main story and purify them, you can trade them to a handheld game and breed their pre-evolutions. The second way is in Pokemon XD. Mount Battle is a location in Ouray that offers trainer battles and allows you to train your team and earn Poke Coupons. It has 100 total trainers, starting out under level 10 and finishing up at level 70.
There is a special at Mount Battle in XD. There is a special Mew trainer for learn sets.
By defeating all 100 trainers, you get to choose one of the base form Johto starters as a reward. If you do so more than once, you can end up with all 3. But there is quite a huge catch. Stopping by to do some battles to train, then moving on with your adventure, coming back and beating the whole thing does not count. You only get the Johto starter if you run through the entire thing in one go without changing your team at all.
Hey chat, I found a stream when I get around to actually streaming this. This is gonna take the entire stream. It's gonna be an endurance one.
That means to get all 3 starters, you must do 300 battles, most of which will be mind-numbingly boring because you'll need a high-level team to beat the final boss, and the challenge starts at level 9. It's also frustrating because this is just not communicated to the player in-game. I remember playing XD and like finishing Mount Battle during the main story, and then not getting the Johto starter, and I was like, what? Why? And then I looked up why, and then got mad and never did it. But even doing 300 battles, I don't believe is the hardest method of getting all of the Johto starters in Gen 3.
Wasn't it you have to get to the post-game in Emerald? And was it post-game National Dex, and then you get 1 of them per save file? I don't remember.
The last one, the only way to get them in the handheld games, is the toughest. The starters are only available in Emerald, and they're given to you as a simple gift from Professor Birch in Little Root Town.
Sure.
However, you only get 1, and only after completing the entire Hoenn Pokedex.
Oh, never mind. So it doesn't leave 4. I mean, yeah, that's kind of fair though, right? And then you can like have somebody else with, well, at that point it does require either multiple playthroughs or it requires a friend to be able to corroborate with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
registering 200 Pokemon, including all the legends, gets you 1 starter?
Yeah.
That's insane! Doing the 300 battles in XD at least gave you all 3 in one game.
I like how he says, this is insane, and I just respond with, this is Pokemon. Yeah, this is my era of Pokemon, chat. You have to understand, this is my golden age.
Assuming no access to the GameCube games at all, this means to get all 3 starters in Emerald, you need 2 other friends to have also completed the entire Pokedex. And then they have to choose the specific starters that you do not.
Yep.
Or if you're on your own, that means you have to have 3 Emerald save files and complete the Hoenn Pokedex 3 times.
Yep.
And without a GameCube, this is the only way to get them in Gen 3. It's outrageous.
So you wonder why I'm so hyper independent on a lot of things. It's because I grew up with stuff like this. I never actually quite got things like this, but it's, man, this would be so easy if I had friends who played Pokemon. This would be so easy if other people played Pokemon. There were a couple who showed up every now and again, but for all intents and purposes, it's always kind of just been me. It's why I've made what pushes I've wanted to and tried to. It's just like, hey, I'll go play VGC. I'll just pick it up and go, you know what? F it. I'll learn an entirely new format. Like, or just learn modern VGC, right? Because yeah, this is what I grew up with. This is not, people may say it's madness, insanity. Nah, this is just Pokemon. People are looking at me in a way different light now.
For all the rank 5 Pokemon, it's clear that the Shadow ones from Colosseum are by far the best method of obtaining them. But if you don't own a GameCube, you're in for a bad time. but at least they're still possible.
Yeah.
That cannot be said for the Pokemon in the final rank.
I like the
Rank
the
6,
track.
GameCube or Event
Yep.
exclusive.
Yep.
First is Lugia. You simply cannot get it directly in the handheld games today.
Nope. It is by definition impossible. Technically, even if you wanted to argue, you might be able to arbitrary code execute something either to wrong warp, to get out of bounds and try to go to the islands, right? Technically, that is not obtained via normal gameplay. And unless for some reason there's still an actual official Nintendo branded distribution card out there, if there is, let me know. Like, let me know in the comment section where you find one of these. Like, because I see some like not for resale like Gen 4 carts still floating around online. They're a pretty penny. Don't get me wrong, but some of those float around and they're quite spicy. Because technically that would be via normal gameplay. You cannot get the mystery gift event anymore, right? Nintendo's not distributing these. Pokemon's not distributing these. You would have to do it glitchless, right? Or to get it, you would have to have access to the GameCube games. Like, it is by definition technically impossible to get these anymore.
Or event distributions for both Lugia itself and the Mystic Ticket, an item that allows the player to go catch one at the secret island Naval Rock. More on that in my Pokemon's Lost Islands video. But these events are long gone. The only way to get a Lugia in Gen 3 today is from Pokemon XD. This frankly badass Shadow Lugia is the box art mascot of the game, and you can battle and snag it during the climax of the story. Purifying it is not like the others though. To do so, you must use the Purification Chamber, which only exists in XD, not Coliseum.
You have to use the Purification Chamber, and you have to get the
Pokemon exactly right to maximize every single Purification Room's output level to then purify Shadow Lugia. It was an ordeal. I did it. You have to know the combinations, and you have to kind of look at the levels and stuff, but it's a little bit of work.
And it involves making these type advantage squares
to
maximize the tempo. Once you have all the chambers maxed out, you can put Lugia in and purify it instantly, reverting it to its original appearance. Then it can be traded to the handheld games. Lugia's counterpart, Ho-Oh, is similar, but different in many ways and is drastically more difficult.
I never got Ho-Oh in Coliseum. That's going to be something whenever I do my streams on Coliseum I'm going to have to do.
Like Lugia, there were events to receive it directly, or the Mystic Ticket to go find one at Naval Rock, but those are over. Today, Ho-Oh is only found in the other Ore game, Coliseum. But it is so much more work. Step 1, beat the game. Step 2, snag and purify all 48 Shadow Pokemon. That takes ages. There's no passive purification chamber in Coliseum, so you gotta put all these Pokemon into your party individually, except for the only other passive way, which is just leave them in the daycare, which is not free. You can run out of money, and then you're not even done. Remember the Mount Battle thing for the Johto starters in XD? You kinda gotta do the same thing in Coliseum. Coliseum has a Mount Battle in the story mode, but it also has a battle mode with a dedicated Mount Battle challenge there. You must register a team from your story mode, then beat all 100 trainers in either single or double battles. In one way, this is harder than XD, but in another, it's easier. It's harder because the trainers follow the open level format.
Oh no.
They match the level of the highest in your party.
So if you have a level 100 Rayquaza and everything else is like level 80, grats, everything's scaling up to that Rayquaza.
However, I should note they do have 0 EVs and IVs. And then it's easier than XD because every time you win without a Pokemon fainting, which will happen a lot early on, you earn a free continue. I'm pretty sure that in XD, if you have a single loss, you have to start over. Once you finish the challenge, Ho-Oh will be deposited into your story mode PC. You can then trade it to the handhelds.
Man, I'm gonna have to figure out the team comp for that one. That's gonna be a wild stream.
But seriously, do not do this until you've purified all the Shadow Pokemon. I'm like 99% sure if you finish the Mount Battle Challenge without all of them snagged and purified,
makes sense.
Then you don't get Ho-Oh and you have to start over.
Would be fair, yeah.
And that would really suck. And then finally is, of course, Celebi.
Technically, I don't even think it's obtainable in the English version because the bonus disc we got for Coliseum was Jirachi. I got mine for $180 a couple years ago. And those have gone up since then. Like I got that at a really good time, even though it was still pretty expensive. But the English one we got was Jirachi, the Jirachi Wishmaker bonus disc. Japan got the Celebi bonus disc. So I don't even think you could get it in English, even if you wanted to.
Celebi is mythical, and thus it's par for the course that getting it is almost or completely impossible most of the time.
Yep.
It had several distributions throughout Gen 3, but those are long gone,
Yep.
so the only way to get it today is the Japanese Coliseum bonus disc.
I own this.
In the USA, pre-ordering Pokemon Coliseum got you this bonus disc,
I own that.
which can dispense Jirachi to copies of Ruby and Sapphire.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Japan
Specifically Ruby and Sapphire. Emerald will not work.
Japan's bonus disc dispensed Celebi.
Yep.
Which does actually make more sense since you use Time Flutes to summon Celebi and purify Pokemon. However, unlike Jirachi, Celebi requires you to have purified all 48 Shadow Pokemon before it will send one to your story mode save file. Also, everything you use has to be Japanese.
Yeah.
Which is pretty tough for those of us in America. Although, apparently, I believe I read this correctly, you can dispense one Celebi per purified Pokemon, which is 48.
I would have to do research into that. That'd be kind of wild, though.
So, that's a lot of freaking Celebis. I guess they were just expecting, like, a few people to be just, like, the Celebi distributors. And now that I've
That feels like an oversight. You know, like how Animal Crossing GameCube in Japan, Dobutsu no Mori, E plus, I think it would be Dobutsu Mori E, I think. E plus would be after our Animal Crossing GameCube. They would be E plus after that then. There was still the Tom Nook code system, but in English, it works completely different because it only, I think, checks to like the first like 2 variables. Hunter R has an amazing video on it. Like I actually really enjoyed it. But it only checks the code up to like 2 variables, so you have like so many different possibilities of like codes you can get from Tom Nook because of how they did the coding in English. Which was that's not a feature, that is definitely an oversight in the code. That feels like this would be an oversight in terms of Celebi distribution, especially because Jirachi you only get 1 per file of Ruby or Sapphire.
covered the GameCube/event exclusive Legends, you now know how to get every Johto Pokemon in the Gen 3 games. I've never gotten all of them myself, and I probably
No.
never will, but
No.
maybe I'll at least shoot for Ho-Oh someday.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see another video of mine going through the insane hoops we had to jump through to get Pokemon back in the day, check out my video on why getting Regigigas in Gen 4 was freaking ridiculous.
Yeah, it was. Oh, this was a really good trip down memory lane. I want to thank everyone for watching. I want to thank MandJTV for making just such an amazing video. Like, there was a really... There was such a cool trip down memory lane with this. Let me know if you want more Pokemon content. Let me know if you'd be interested in me streaming it. I know I had a playthrough of Heart Gold going on the gaming channel. I got to like episode 5 of that quote-unquote Let's Play. But one of those I could still potentially make weekly entries if people were interested, because I got to go back through a bunch of the retro stuff anyways. But thank you, everyone, for watching. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed. Let me know what you liked. Let me know your favorite retro and or niche Pokemon facts, and I'll see you all in the next one.